Hello and welcome to the second part of this webinar, kindly produced by Auxilio in collaboration with the Bold Legal Group, dealing with post-completion work in the digital age. My name is Rob Hailstone, CEO and founder of the Bold Legal Group, a nationwide association of over 600 law firms. Joining me today are Adil Hamid, Director at Auxilio, Joanna King, Product Manager with the TM Group, Roger Holdham, Market Strategy and Customer Training Lead with HM Land Registry, and Simon Black, Director of Property Services at Taylor Rose. Panelists, welcome. Would you please now let us have a brief introduction from yourselves.
Thanks, Rob. I'm Adil Hamid, one of the directors at Auxilio. So we specialize in supporting law firms with conveyancing operations, particularly across title checking and post-completion work. Very pleased to be part of the discussion. As we all know, this is an area that's changing quickly, especially with the land registry's digital plans, which we heard from Roger in the first part of this webinar. And yeah, great time to talk about this and glad to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Adil. Joanna.
Hi, I'm Jo King. I'm Product Manager, Legal and Compliance Lead at TM Group. We provide property searches and lots of other tech solutions for conveyances, pretty much for the entire end-to-end of the conveyancing journey. And that, of course, includes post-completion services. So that includes integration with the Land Registry for digital AP1 submissions. Essentially, my role is being a bridge or a translator between technical teams at TM Group and also our customers to be able to actually convey what are the day-to-day problems that our users face and being able to actually translate them into tech solutions. Really, really excited to be here today.
Great, thank you, Jo. Roger, over to you, please.
Thank you so much, Rob. And yeah, we're very excited to be here. I work with my colleagues at the Land Registry, and at the moment I'm looking after two fantastic teams. One is the Market Strategy team, which is a team of people that are looking to make sure that the propositions and the services that we create are making it easier for our customers to deliver those to us in a way that we can put them on the register as fast and as easily as possible. The other team I look after is the Customer Training team. Focused at professional customers, we're looking to how we can help you understand the processes and the information we need to make sure that when you submit an application, it gets through the systems very easily and helps you manage your clients easily and more professionally. Two teams working really hard for the customer.
Thanks, Roger. And Simon, please.
Yeah, hi everybody. Really happy to be back for part two of this webinar. So Simon Black, Director of Property at Taylor Rose, one of, if not the biggest conveyancing firm in the country, responsible for tens of thousands of applications at the Land Registry each year. So post-completion really is one of the areas that we focus on as a department, as a firm, to make sure that we can ensure that transactions and registrations are as quick as possible, with limited fuss and limited requisitions. So really interested to have this discussion on, say, how digital tech and transformation that we are heavily invested in as a firm can incorporate Land Registry and applications. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Okay, thanks, Simon. In the first section of this webinar, I directed questions to Roger and Jo. Today we're going to direct questions to Simon and Adil. If we could start with you, please, Adil. How can outsourcing play a role in supporting law firms with post-completion, and what are the most common misconceptions around quality?
So I think a lot of firms find post-completion challenging, and it's not because they don't know how to do it, but because of how the work is structured internally. A lot of the time, it's a process that often sits between fee-earning responsibilities, client comms, lender updates, and other admin. So it doesn't always get that ring-fenced focus that it really deserves. So outsourcing, in our view, helps give firms access to a dedicated team whose entire focus is post-completion. People who follow clear workflows, understand the common issues, and really they handle this work day in and day out. And that kind of consistency and process discipline makes a huge difference to turnaround times and requisition rates. In terms of the misconceptions, I mean, you mentioned quality, but actually the two that we hear the most are quality and control, right? Because obviously you're outsourcing and you often wonder about whether you're going to lose control of the process. So with regards to control, actually, it's if the partner, someone like ourselves, is embedded properly, we pretty much always work on the client systems, right? So the client actually has the same level of transparency as with their own staff. Every action is time-stamped, auditable, visible to the firm, so you see exactly where things stand. And then on quality, actually, when it's set up properly and you're partnering with a professional firm, the opposite tends to happen. And by that, I mean your quality level doesn't tend to drop, it tends to improve. A good outsourcing model brings in structured quality controls. There's things like multiple levels of checking, audit trails, and data validation before submission, because the team is process-led, and in our case, we measure their performance against defined KPIs that we agree with the client. So the quality, they have an incentive to make sure the quality is high, and it is very measurable. So the result is it becomes more consistent, actually, not less.
Okay, thanks, Adil. Which post-completion tasks are most commonly outsourced by firms? For example, API submissions, managing requisitions, lender updates, etc.
So it starts just after completion, obviously. So once SDLT has been paid and you're preparing the submission, the work is obviously, the matter is handed over to our team. The team typically reviews the file to check all the supporting documents are present and accurate before submission. And that's my comment earlier, and something Joe talked about as well, about sort of, when things are handed over at that point, if they're not submittable first time, what a delay that causes. But we try to triage things. We try to check before going through the submission process, make sure everything is there. If it's not there, we'll go back to the fee earner, get all of the documents in. So I guess that's the initial process. That's the initial step of checking. And then beyond that, the scope is flexible, right? Depending on the firm. Some firms, they stop at AP1 preparation and submission. Others, they hand over the entire process right through to the file closure. So we manage requisitions, we update lender portals, we verify the TID. And really that full end-to-end approach is actually where firms tend to see the biggest efficiency gains.
Adil, what measures can firms put in place to ensure outsourced work meets the same quality standards as in-house? Now, that's an important question for law firms.
Yeah, so I think it is. And really it starts with setting clear expectations. Again, it's something Joe mentioned around mapping the process, right? And that's so critical because a lot of firms don't have a process really, unfortunately. So we try to help map out the process, and often just the exercise of mapping out the process results in actually efficiency gains because you know how things stand. But yeah, we'll map out the process, identify any efficiencies that can be made quickly, and then we'll jointly define KPIs and service standards that matter most. So usually, with post-completion, it'll be things like accuracy, turnaround times, target requisition rates, communication frequency. We always recommend combining quantitative measures like the ones I've mentioned with qualitative ones, such as feedback from fee earners. And you have that feedback loop, and that's where you uncover patterns and opportunities for improvement. And yeah, once you have those measures agreed, quality management becomes it just becomes transparent, and you can monitor trends over time. You can adjust the process together, and it is a process. Outsourcing is not something that happens outside your firm. The way we operate very much is as an extension of the firm or an extension of your team. So we will work with the internal teams to provide all of those metrics that we mentioned and to identify areas for improvement consistently.
Okay, thanks. Some firms worry about language barriers, or if you're a bad delegator like me, losing control of files. How realistic are those concerns, and what practical safeguards exist?
Yeah, so I think so a couple of things, right? So they're pretty common concerns. I think we've mentioned the control piece. I've already mentioned the control piece. If we're working as we do with, I'd say 99% of our clients, we work within their practice management system. And every action is timestamp visible and part of the same audit trail as the in-house team would be subject to. So that is the control part. In terms of language, our teams are offshore. We have a delivery center in Islamabad, Pakistan, And it is a legitimate concern. The way we get around that is by ensuring we hire people with British law degrees. So there are people who have come to the UK and they've studied here and have gone back. We recruit them. So they come for their undergrad, they come for their LLB, LLM, bar at law, and they go back. We recruit them, or we recruit people who have done a UK accredited degree overseas. So the standard of communication, both written and spoken in English, is significantly higher, and we see that in the feedback we get from clients, that the comms with our teams is for lack of a better word, painless, I guess, which is a good thing.
Okay, thanks Adele. Anyone, any comments on anything said?
It's actually it's really interesting what Adele has mentioned in terms of actually the background and experience and the legal training behind the team, Auxilio in particular, because actually a lot of the kind of like post-completion teams that we tend to come across, usually it is probably less experienced people on this side of the border that tend to work on post-completion files. So whether we're talking about paralegals or administrative support, or maybe not frequently junior lawyers, but actually it probably will be more paralegals, whereas we're talking about probably fully qualified people in the sort of like offshore services, actually being able to contribute their skill and expertise to quite a vital part of the legal process. Very interesting point I've just learned.
When thinking about outsourcing partners and post-completion, what standards and safeguards should firms look for to ensure compliance and quality? Simon, if we could turn to you, please.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I think probably goes back to a decent amount of what Adele has just mentioned, is partnering with organisations that understand the process, and not just understand it, but do it on a daily basis. So generally the standard could be a bit higher. Some conveyancers, rightly or wrongly, kind of see post-completion as outside of their, of the transaction, because maybe the bill has been paid, etc. So it's really, outsourcing to those that have full understanding of all the process, but it's also working with them so that they can understand the process that we might have already as a firm. So in terms of how we want to work together, do we do certain checks at certain stages, or do we pass over, as Adele said, the whole of the post-completion, or just limit it to certain parts of it? But it's also things like making sure that they're embedded into our case management system. So, they're not working, on their own outsourcing. So the GDPR regulations and all those kind of key security concerns from a client, that their data isn't being exposed. So it's all things like that. But as I say, it becomes, we've probably talked about it a little bit, maybe in part one, of those partnerships we build. So partnerships with the Land Registry, but outsourcing post-completion work is just an extension of that as a partnership. As Adele mentioned, it's the extension of us as a firm if we outsource, and obviously and we are therefore held to the same standards, and clients expect post-completion work to be done in the same standard as their conveyancing transaction. So it's finding the right partner to make sure that we can meet those goals.
So do you sort of check qualifications or certifications, for example, compliance, ISO data? And how can firms verify that outsourced work meets required standards, do you think?
Yeah, so we because any company that we outsource with, or institution we outsource with, they work on our case management system. So we have all the same security in place. But similar to what Adele said, we have some experience with Auxilio. So we know that they are recruiting people with UK law degrees, or degrees, accredited degrees anyway. So, and again, that conversation about the language barrier is less of a concern from our perspective because of the work that Adele and his team do. But then in terms of being able to sort of verify that they're meeting the required standards, KPIs obviously are really important. We can track every metric that we decide to. in terms of timeframes from AP1 submission to registration, from completion to AP1 submission, requisitions. We can track data from how many requisitions maybe our in-house team as opposed to an outsourced team are doing, and spot checks of files. It's really important. Our post-completion team that we have internally work very closely with any outsourced team that we do. As I say, they are an extension of our internal team. So and everybody gets tracked on the same metrics. So it's really important. There's no differentiation between those two.
Okay, thanks. So given the regulators' focus on conveyancing quality, what would happen if an error occurred in outsourced work? And I think you said you do deal with Auxilio, so that probably hasn't happened to you, but if it did, and what compliance measures such as strict data protocols and supervision are advisable?
Yeah, so we have, as I say, we outsource, we work with Auxilio, but we also have an internal team. But we have, the key thing is around supervision. So we have a team of our head of post-completion operations, we have post-completion managers that work alongside all of the team members that do post-completion, and say supervision is across the board. And that stems from our internal team. But it goes back to making sure our systems are used. So there's no, we all know that all the work is being done on the same platform. So the data shouldn't be different across the submissions. Everyone's working from the same place. But also say that the data is not external. But the familiarisation with UK requirements, lender's handbook, but the ability to be able to contact clients or third parties for any information that is necessary. We know that can happen from an outsourced team because of the UK qualifications and understanding of the requirements in the process that is post completion. Because it's not easy. There's a lot to it. It's sometimes we wish it was more straightforward than it is, but sometimes it can involve lengthy conversations, sometimes many months after completion. And it's making sure that those people that are dealing with it fully understand what they're asking for, why they need it, and being able to communicate that with whichever third party or client they are talking to. So, but when things if they do go wrong, it's just open communication. Being able to establish why it's gone wrong, being able to understand what we can do to resolve it, and and how we do that. So, I think as a team internally and our work with Auxilio, we have that open communication. I think the team speak pretty much on a daily basis, many times a day, I'd imagine. Just in relation to that quality control that we put in place with them.
Okay, thanks. Adil, if I can just bring you back in on that point. So what would happen your side of the fence if an error occurred? We're all humans, thankfully, still in this business. It's not robots yet. So what would happen from your side of the fence? How would you deal with that?
Yeah, right. So, I think the critical bit is open and transparent communication, right? So errors happen. I think the critical bit is to make sure that the error doesn't happen again, right? So if you've made the error, you've made the error. If it's fixable, obviously our teams will correct it. If it's an error that is not fixable immediately, we will make sure that we log it. We have process manuals. We spoke about this earlier, mapping processes. We have manuals, that tell the team exactly what steps they need to take. To be honest, people aren't referring to these manuals every day because they're pretty experienced, but the point is that it's something we log, right? And so if there's an error that's been made, it's logged. So if we have a team of 10 and one person's made an error, all 10 will be made aware that error should not be made again, right? So it's just making sure that these things are addressed. And I think there's also, we regularly get into a practice with clients, including, Taylor Rose, where we sit down and review cases. So it'll either be, depends on the cadence agreed with the client, but, weekly sessions or fortnightly sessions to go through reasons behind errors, what we've done to mitigate those errors going forward, etc. So I think and I've mentioned this earlier as well about sort of that having that positive feedback loop, and sort of that self-reinforcing rhythm within QC and QA.
Yeah, and I think that's what I would want to hear as well, that if an error happens, and they are rare by the sound of it, They're taken very seriously, and everyone should learn by their mistakes, and they shouldn't happen again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, all right, thanks, Adil. Well, one final question, perhaps open to everybody if you want to chip in, but I'll direct it to Simon first. How can law firms demonstrate and track improvements in their post-completion performance, and what indicators show they're moving in the right direction?
Many ways. We tend to focus on requisition rates, which obviously is, as Roger alluded to, I think in part one, that are published, are a metric that anyone can kind of judge you against. Time from completion to AP1 submission, avoidable requisitions. We work very closely with our sort of contacts at the Land Registry. We have monthly meetings where you go through requisition based on the workbook that gets produced to identify the top 10 reasons for our requisitions, and we identify those, and we work with our teams in-house to sort of identify them, make sure everyone is aware. And you can, on that basis, you can really see the improvements you make with your requisition rate coming down. We've done a lot of work internally, both myself, our Director of Professional Standards, our post-completion team, on bringing our requisition rate down, which comes back to the data, is getting all your ducks in a row, getting all those suite of documents that Joe mentioned earlier correct, so your submissions can be accepted first time. Things like names being spelt incorrectly just shouldn't happen. So we've done a lot of work, and we've been able to see over the last 12 months our requisition rate significantly be reduced, which is great. And because then that goes further, it goes into things like PI insurance, lender panel statuses, all this kind of thing. So we track them on a monthly basis. We report to the board on our post-completion statistics, which I'm not sure every firm does, but we do. Because we take our post-completion responsibilities extremely seriously. As I said earlier, I'm never convinced that every conveyancer, and most of them do, but not every conveyancer, treats post-completion with the seriousness that it should be, because as I say, potentially you've already been paid, and as you mentioned earlier, I think maybe in part one, Rob, that most conveyancers don't want to come back to a file. Once it's done, it's done. But post-completion is an extension of a transaction, so it has to be taken seriously.
I was going to say, and yet that is the most important bit, because nobody wants to be thrown off of a lender's panel.
Yeah, 100%. And it is always something that is at the forefront of everybody's mind in our firm, and I presume every other's. Is you get thrown off a lender panel, it has so many other repercussions that you can't even think of just straight away. So really important. It has to be taken seriously.
Okay, thanks. Joe, any feedback on what Simon's just said? Any comments?
Perhaps as an extension, so we're talking a lot about avoiding requisitions, but first of all, and that's great. But actually, chances are that requisitions will still happen, because some of them cannot be avoided. So actually, another metric that potentially could be tracked as a measurable improvement is how you deal with the requisition, how quickly you actually respond to it, and actually using solutions that offer you the visibility of your entire sort of like AP1 transaction journey. So whether we're talking about the case history, so you can see exactly what's happening, or having a management dashboard, or actually having some reporting behind the scenes, which for example, our customers, they actually have access to lots of these tools. They can quite measurably track how long it takes for a requisition to be responded to. They will be able to actually track it to any particular team member. We do actually have an example where one of the firms that we have been working with, all of a sudden they sort of like experience a sudden kind of like spike in cancellations of AP1s, and that usually happens if the requisition hasn't been responded on time. So we were able to actually use some metrics behind the scenes to try to narrow down the cause, and actually it was a layered picture. So first of all, there was a training need that has naturally evolved, and actually there's a lot of training that can be introduced to improve the process behind the scenes. But also there was a very simple process gap where some people may have been forgetting to tag a particular email address that they should have to receive notifications about requisition. So actually having some reporting behind the scenes helps to remove sort of like big issues by having very small adjustments and small sort of like fixes that they can implement behind the scenes. So there's definitely lots of different things that can be done to actually look at the entire post-completion process holistically.
Okay, thanks. Roger, if you can, do you have any figures or stats that you can share with us on what requisitions bring into the industry with delays and cost, etc.?
Absolutely. So we last looked at this in September of last year, and we went from September to September. And at that point, when we looked at the number of what we call avoidable requisitions, there were 600,000 of them in a year. 600,000 requisitions, which we would consider that if you had taken a process more clearly or just worked through your process in a more clear way, you would have not received as an industry. And if you're receiving that work, you don't want to receive it. There's no need to retrieve it. If you're paying for that work to be done, if you run a firm, that's £20 million of additional cost that the industry is having to pay. And that's your costs as well. That's not the land registry costs. It adds time as well. It adds time. The average one is 21 days. And just to back up what Simon and Joanne have been talking about here, I think it would be responsible for me not to say, when you respond to requisitions, respond to all of them, because you would be amazed at the number of people who go, there are 3, and they send a letter back and they only do 2 of them. And guess what that causes? Another requisition. We write back and say, thanks for that, brilliant. Do you remember the other one we wrote to you about? So if you can look at that. And I think the last thing I wanted to bring out, apart from the cost, is just to remember that we ask for requisitions because one of the things the industry wants is a register with integrity, a register that is totally accurate. We sell a lot of the information services that we provide are based on the integrity of the register, and that starts with the conveyancer filling in the data correctly. The land registry, if you add up everything, is looking after or registering trillions, nearly £10 trillion worth of data of money value is on the register for the whole of the UK. Within England and Wales, which is obviously where HM Land Registry looks, it's over £7 trillion worth of that. So that register is a national asset, and the integrity of it is clear. And though we are here discussing requisitions, I'd like to thank all the conveyancers and everybody who works in the conveyancers for realizing that that quality of data, that specific attention to detail, allows us to have such a strong register that the industry trusts. And I think it's great because that industry trust also means that our houses are protected, our friends and our family as well. So though I can talk about it as this £1 trillion asset, I can also know that my children's houses are protected, my parents' houses are protected as well. And I think as a conveyancer and conveyancing firms, they know that their process is to ensure that that trust continues and that trust that the organisation has. So it's very easy to look at a requisition and perhaps get annoyed by it or frustrated by it. But if we take that somewhat elevated view and realise that the value is a register that we can all trust as an industry, from the ministry down to your next door neighbours, I think that's a huge part of what we all do, and something that we all should be very proud of, and something that we should all trust as well. And requisitions are part of the process of ensuring that we can have that pride and that trust in the register.
Okay, thanks, Roger. We've got a couple of minutes left, so just open to all of you. Do you think we're looking at a bright new future then as far as post-completion work is concerned going forward over the next few years? Anyone can chip in if they want to.
I think yes, because naturally we will be working a lot on increasing the sort of like accuracy of the data, which will benefit actually the entire profession as a whole. There are a lot of really exciting technological advancements, so definitely exploration of how we can actually stretch the current AI capabilities to actually support the process and automation behind it. So that's definitely a big shift. I think naturally, as part of this process, we're going to start visiting some discussions over some other types of requisitions, and actually for fairness and balance, some requisitions cannot be avoided. And actually, do we need to start having some more in-depth conversation over other common requisitions that actually the blockers are elsewhere that are not necessarily with conveyancers, probably restrictions and providing evidence of compliance with restrictions is one of those topics that I can see some heads nodding. I think there will be a lot of shift, a lot of positive discussion that will now arise on the back of that, and actually having the land registry to propel that change with putting some deadlines in the future is one of those things that will accelerate the shift, the progress behind it, which is really, really exciting.
Okay, thank you, Joe. That's pretty much perfect timing. So unless anybody else has got any quick comments, I will wind up. Say thank you to everyone, Dylan and his team for putting this on, the viewers out there, and our esteemed panelists. Thanks very much. See you all again soon, I hope.